The course is on data integrity and security, and the book we are covering is database security. This chapter number 1, security and information technology. Let's see what they are talking about in this one. The presentation covers the objectives found in the be stored in the database is very important, and what procedures and protocols we must follow in order to protect the data. Identify the 3 main security objectives when protecting the information systems. Identify security threats which are there as far as your data is concerned, and then define the identity, the characteristics of viruses and how they infiltrate the systems. We must have a clear understanding of how the viruses affect your data. Now there is a purpose of them to be there. They are there to harm the system. They are there to steal the information. They are there to automate the processes so that the information is being leaked out from your organization to the cloud and you are not aware of it. Identify specific types of operational security and describe how to implement them. So there will be different models that we can follow in order to protect the things. Then describe the information security lifecycle and describe the multi-layered nature of security architecture. We can try our best to protect the data, and that's the maximum we can do. Every new day comes in with new challenges. You'll have any new breaches, new problems, vulnerabilities in the operating systems, in the databases itself, because there is a team which is working on protecting the things, and there is a huge team which is working against the security, looking for loopholes, vulnerabilities, weaknesses. Some are targeted to operating systems, some are targeted to the databases. If the operating system is compromised, maybe you won't be able to work on those computers, maybe for a day or 2, or maybe for a week. But if the database of an organization is compromised, it's a very big loss to any organization. Companies go bankrupt by just losing the information, because they'll have to check that if your database was compromised, what's the integrity of the data? If the data has been changed or not, if it has been modified, if the data has been replaced, if the information is missing, is there any new information on it? If the data is available in the true format, how it's supposed to be there, or the character set of the database has been changed. All of these things must be considered so that you have a consistency in the data. Why database security? Most databases provide access spanning several networks and across the world. Now, there are different security principles for that. Some companies are maintaining a cloud-based setup where if a data is written, it's written at 2 different instances simultaneously. It's not backup. Backup is if it's complete at one place, create a replica of it somewhere else. In this case, what they do is that the data goes and it goes in 2 different streams. It's stored at one place and it's stored on the second place. If the data is successfully written on both places, making sure that it is authentic and there is no change in the hash value and everything, only then the data would be saved. If that's not done, the data is not saved and you cannot proceed. So they are maintaining high availability of it. Most online transactions involves a database. Nowadays, we cannot think of a transaction without a database. Imagine if you have a bank account somewhere in Baja or Abha. You opened your account in a bank and their branch, main branch was in Abha or Baja. and you are trying to withdraw money from here, which is quite far from the main city. If the record is not updated immediately, maybe a person over there would use your card to withdraw money, and you'll withdraw the money from here as well. So there will be a discrepancy in updating the records. Everything goes through a central database. During the night time, for the banks, they do all sort of audits. And then any transactions which were void, or if you tried to take out the money from an ATM and you couldn't get the money, but you received an SMS that you withdrew the money from the ATM, the transaction is reversed overnight. That's what we say live transactions. It does not only help you in the security, but it helps you in maintaining the warehouse and logistic details as well. You want to purchase anything from Jarir, and it shows you that the item you are interested in is not available in the branch which is nearby your house, but you can find the same item in these stores which are a bit far from your house, because they are maintaining everything live on the databases. Now that comes with a cost. Earlier, when we had dial-up modems and we were not connected live to the internet, there was a mechanism of batch processing. So the transactions would take place, and late night they'll be updated, since at that time there will be less load on the network. It would go on the internet, would update the central database, and they'll say, or they'll ask you to check it tomorrow to get the updated results. Water supplies, electric grids, and gas and oil production depends on a computer network to thrive. Breach could have disastrous impacts. Network intruders are well trained and growing more sophisticated. So wherever we go, whether it's business, your own organization, academic institutions, hospitals, public services, governments, each and every one is dependent on the databases. Now, a secure data environment. What is a secure data environment? Multiple layers of security, most effective approach to minimize the risk of the data breach. There are multiple layers of security that you must have. Example of multiple security layers to protect against malicious email attachments, user awareness training, filter on Exchange server to remove known malicious attachments, firewall configured to deny certain type of traffic. Now, all of these items require some explanation. Example of multiple layers, first of all, emails, attachments that you are receiving from someone, you must not open it unless and until you know that it's coming from which person. Most of them are coming in with encrypted code or executable files. The moment you will download it, it would be executed and it would be sitting somewhere in your System32 folder. It would be performing an operation, but you don't know where it went. And it is very difficult to get rid of them. That's why in most of the email programs, especially the organizations which are using Microsoft Exchange servers, they block the content which is not trusted. And they give you a warning that it has an attachment. Do you really want to see? Then you click enable, and then the file would be downloaded. But then it's your responsibility to check that it's coming from where. User awareness training. They provide training to the users, plus they have their own way to test if people are checking or not. They'll be sending emails from a lookalike email addresses within an organization, and they'll see that if you notice the email address or you just opened the email, and how you reacted. Did you download the file? For example, everyone else in the organization was expecting a pay raise, that maybe we'll get an increment. During the time, they'll send an email, a fake email to all users saying that congratulations, your salary has been increased 30%. And people usually get excited. They don't even read that it's coming from where. They'll just open it. And then it would say, download the attachment to see your updated salary slip. Once you download it, they'll notice that you didn't read it, you have downloaded it. Based on the users who have downloaded and clicked on the link, they customize an awareness program, and they are forced to attend those awareness programs just to make sure that they are aware of the latest techniques to get the information. Filter on Exchange servers to remove known or malicious attachments. Filter on Exchange servers that if there were some files which were lying on the mail servers which would compromise the computers and the databases must be removed from there. Firewalls configured to deny certain type of traffic. That if you are constantly monitoring that spam is coming from a specific address or an IP address or a country or a domain, you block them so that you don't receive all that. Now, as far as the statistics are concerned, about 90% of the emails that we filter on our spam filters is spam. 90% of the emails. So the emails that you are getting are after they are being filtered. Still, some emails manage to go through the messaging gateway, but there are protocols with the help of which we can still block them. Now, set established procedures, standards, policies, and tools, protect against theft, misuse, and attacks, and deal with permissions and access to the data structures. Now, every user will be having a username and password. Now, if you are using a web-based application, you don't need a username and password of the database. For example, you are doing a routine task. In an educational environment, the guys who are working in the student affairs, what they are doing is they are maintaining the records for the students who are admitted in the college or the university and modifying their details like ID numbers, etc. Now, they'll be using a web-based interface. They don't need to go to the database itself to perform the operations, because the application which is provided to them, they have an access control on it. But the same application would give an access control based on the username and password, but whether they can modify the records or they are able to delete the records from there as well. So it really depends on the kind of access that the users have on these kind of systems. Common vendor features for database security, database level access control, level authentication, and storage encryption. That's what I was talking about in the starting of the lecture. Data storage encryption. The data which goes in and is of sensitive level, it must be encrypted. But if you'll change the username and password, it should be reflected and saved in the encrypted format as well. So that's the only way you can protect the data on it. Computer security necessary element of the database security, typically defined by the operating system. So if it's about the integrity of the data, the integrity of the information or the computer which you are using in order to access the databases or the applications must be protected as well. Any information which is stored on the computers must be in a proper format. The antivirus solution programs that we are using these days, which are enterprise solutions installed on the computers, are more than antivirus solutions. They come in with a built-in firewall. They come in with a built-in anti-theft protection. They can even block the USB ports. They can block the internet access. They can block the applications. They can block the websites. They can block the access to certain programs which are executed on the computer. So it's not only antivirus which they are protecting you against. It's anti-spam, anti-malware, firewall, and lots of other solutions are there. So if I have an antivirus installed on a computer and it's an enterprise solution, there is no way you can install it on a client computer. There are username and passwords. Remotely they'll monitor it, they'll check the MAC address of the computer and the IP address. Only then you'll be able to install that software from the computer. Otherwise it remains there. And you don't have the username and password, the only option left is to format the machine. Once the antivirus is installed on the computer, you won't be able to install it. That's why they make sure that the information which is saved on the computer is 100% safe. Computer security necessary elements of the database security typically defined by the operating system level access control, system level authentication, application and hardware software monitoring logs. That's why in the student labs, students don't have admin rights. You can do basic operations which are required for you. You cannot install any application. You can install minor applications which does not go to the system files. That's how they control it. Even the software monitoring logs are there. If they are skipped from here, they'll be saved on the network logs, on the firewall, activity of each and every computer. Because firewalls are monitoring all computers and servers, plus the bring your own device, equipment, or any gadgets that you have, all logs for that would be stored on the firewall. Now, network security is the outermost layer of the database. Why do we say that? We say it because not everyone will have access to the database. Only the database administrator would be accessing the database from time to time basis. Rest of them would be coming to access the data on the database using port 80 or 443 or different ports which are allowed to communicate with the database. But in actual contact where you can change the overall structure of the database and things, only the database administrators will have access to that. Arguably, the biggest security concern is the network security and set the established procedures, standards, and policies and tools, and goal is to protect the network from theft, misuse, and attacks. That's only possible if you will protect the database from any external exposure. Now, if I don't want my database to be exposed from the internet, I'll save it on the firewall. That no external access to that database will be allowed from outside, except if the administrator having an IP address and a MAC address is accessing it during this time frame. So you'll define the time frame that, for example, the duty hours are from 8:30 to 4 o'clock. So he'll be able to access it from 8:30 to 4 o'clock in 5 days a week, not more than that. So you'll switch off the policy where anyone, even he cannot access it during the weekend. You define it that for how many days he'll be able to access it. That's why if you have an effective policy and program to follow, if the database administrator is on holidays or vacations, you switch off the policy so that no one can access it. Hardware and software devices used to secure a network, firewalls, antivirus programs, network monitoring, intrusion detection systems, proxy servers, and authentication servers. Now, what are they? Firewalls, you know it. It protects the data from outside to inside and inside to outside. Antivirus programs, you're aware of it. It cleans the computer from the viruses and stuff like that. Network monitors, they see the traffic, that what's going on. If someone is scanning the network, if someone is trying to do some things on the network, intrusion detection systems. Smart systems, we call them IDS systems also. What they do is they detect any kind of intrusion attempts on the network. And then they keep a log of it and create a report so that you can monitor it, that what's going on the network. Proxy servers are the one which are authenticating you on the internet, where we can block the websites. What you're doing, which services should be allowed, whether Instagram should be allowed in the college or not, if Instagram shall be working, if VPN is allowed, all those things. Authentication servers are the servers which authenticate you on the network. That if a user is authenticated as student, he must be able to access certain things. If a user is authenticated as a faculty, he will have different privileges. If a user is authenticated as an administrator, he'll have different set of policies. So you define the policies based on the user, and the information is shown to him is quite limited.